What's up guys? Today we're gonna have something different and it's going to be another Hydra video. And today I want to talk about Maulie, who used to be a fusion champion that is still even available in the game from the token trader. And she's kind of semi-underrated champion, though people do use her a little bit. She used to be one of the top PvP champions at one point, which might sound like unbelievable, but she does have the passive that gives you turn meter when you get attacked. And during the time when Hegemon used to be meta, Maulie was actually really good. But today we're gonna talk about a nightmare team revolving around Maulie and some other champions. Basically this is gonna be similar to the other team, that the core is Maulie and the other champions in the team are kind of adjustable. But specifically we're going to be using Quintus this time, and I will, kind of like with Rathalos and Xena, I showcase that in the current meta they actually are much better than Royal Guard and Husk, who used to be the main nukers in Hydra. But basically, let me actually show you the picture. Basically they are gonna do double the damage. So here I have two versions of team. This is the one that I'm running, and by the way both of these are auto, so of course you could do way more damage on manual, but if the main goal is just to get decent damage without putting in too much effort, with a very plausible team comp that you probably are able to do, then this is the team for you. But here is the first version of the team, which is with Acresia, but then I also ran it with Royal Guard, kind of as a control test. But the main point here is that I actually wanted to get use of both Quintus and Maulie. And Quintus is actually surprisingly good on Hydra for multiple reasons, but he has a very strong A1. He does self-attack buff, so you could run him even without dodges. And then also he has the passive that he does increase damage on enemies when they have buffs, which actually does crazy amount of damage. I think it's like 370k damage when it procs on Hydra, so it's actually very huge damage when it happens. But this is kind of standard team that we have basically everything to counter the typical Hydra stuff, but we aren't really relying on any specific champion, so you could basically swap anybody for similar champions, and you could definitely make this team better with, let's say, maybe using Nekmotar instead of Lady Kimi and so on. But basically the point of this team comp is that we have one reviver. It could be anything other than just dodges, but dodges also helps with the fears, so there is that. But you could run anything else that counters fears, like the new champion that you get from the old fragments, or Shamael, or Tuhanarak, or basically anything. But you have one reviver. Then Maulie is basically like a second reviver. She probably could be your only reviver as well in this team. Let's say if you have something like Krisk, you definitely don't need a second reviver in this team. But what Maulie is gonna do is actually two different things, and this is kind of what makes this comp interesting, and what actually makes Maulie so good, and she isn't just carried by the team. But Maulie does two things, well, maybe three things, but she has the taunt, and she has very good uptime on it, even though it's only one turn, assuming that you have her in a fast build. So she can pretty well taunt the head to make sure that they don't cleanse the team. And then also, when she does the taunt, she puts a reflect damage buff only on herself. So if you build Maulie with resistance, it means that it also tanks the head that steals buffs from your team and then shares them with rest of the Hydra heads. And it's basically pretty much only gonna focus on Maulie because of her extra buff, because it's always targeting the champion with most buffs on your team. And if you build her in resistance, which is relatively easy to do, considering that she's a Dwarf and has very high base resistance, but she can basically take care of that head and then also take care of the cleanse, so both of those things. And on top of that, she also has the revive and turn meter boost, so she's actually surprisingly good. And actually we didn't put Maulie in this team just for the sake of making a video about it, but basically Maulie is the main core of this team. And then we just have Uko for decreased defense and block buffs debuff, but you could use other champions for block buffs debuff, and depending what nukers you're running and the rest of the team, you might not need decreased defense, or maybe you're using some totally different champion that does it, like let's say you're using Quintus or something. So there's definitely many different options. Like let's say that your nukers could be Quintus, Venus and Quintus, for instance. You could run that and many other variations. Then we have Lady Kimi just for the decrease and increase speed. Especially decrease speed is a huge difference on Hydra, because you're generally lapping the bosses anyway, and if you're also able to permanently reduce their speed when you're already faster than them, it means that you're lapping them extra hard. And if you have to choose between the decrease speed and increase speed buffs, or buff/debuff, the decrease speed is way better, but basically she's only for that. I don't even have her in Hex set, that would be way better, and you could definitely build her way faster than I have her as well. And then we basically just have Acresia and Quintus for damage, and you could literally use any nukers that you have. But if I quickly show you that I basically run the same setup with Husk as a control, and both of these were, by the way, full auto. And as you can see, Quintus pretty much did double damage of Husk. And let me actually quickly show you what kind of gear I was running on Quintus. Kind of like on my other video, I didn't want to put my best nuke gear on Quintus. Granted that it's probably still going to be very good depending on your account, but I didn't switch different gear on him. This is basically my third best attack scaling nuke set, and he has this permanently, and I'm using him in live arena anyway, so I don't have to swap his gear. But let's say that you don't have Quintus, you could run double Royal Guard or Husk or basically any nukers in this game. But I kind of also wanted to show you that even though Quintus might not be the most popular champion in the game and is very hard to get, but let's say that you play live arena long enough and you have good enough account that you can get 4k points, you could use Quintus for this. I mean, with Cursed City and everything, he might not be the best nuker, but he's pretty usable on many different content, and you could run the same build in live arena, Hydra and Cursed City floors and so on, and that probably could save you some silver if you can do it, so I would definitely consider doing this. But of course, like I said, you could run Ratalos, you could run Taras, Quintus, basically any nukers in this setup. Then if I quickly show you, I have two Duchesses. Basically whichever would work in this setup, but I run this team on Nightmare, so I am running my faster Duchess on this, but the build really doesn't matter. It kind of depends. It might be good to have some heals on your team, but basically I don't have any heals outside of the Duchess revive small heal that he does. 15%. Come on. 15% continuous heal for 2 turns. That's basically all of the heals that I have in this team. But like I mentioned, you could run any reviver. You could just run 1 reviver instead of 2, depending on your team, if it's tanky enough. And if you are having issues in surviving, you should probably consider putting one of your revivers in regeneration set or immortal or bolster or basically any type of item set that heals you. And there's quite many of them nowadays, so it might not be that big issue to do. But of course, if you're running some other champion in the team, with heals you might not even need it. And then let's take a look at Maulie's build. As I already mentioned before, basically we wanted to build Maulie with both accuracy and resistance. This might be kind of hard build to pull off, and I actually have too much accuracy and resistance, so you wouldn't even need this much. But otherwise it's just basic perception build. You could run any item set on Maulie. I probably wouldn't put her on regeneration, and I would focus on trying to get both accuracy and resistance on her. But you could totally do it, and I could do it as well just because I got so high bonuses from Classic Arena and Live Arena, but I'm just running her in this basic setup. Same thing, I could definitely beef this build a lot, but I don't want to swap any of her gear pieces, and I'm not putting my best stuff. As you can see, I haven't even bothered to dust these pieces, and I probably should get boots with double speed roll on her. Maybe I will do it at some point, but it hasn't really been that big deal, so I haven't been bothered to do it. Anyway, it's basically the same thing on Lady Kimmy as well. It's just a basic speed build, no resistance, only accuracy, and even she isn't very optimized for this. I think she also has way too much accuracy, and she's actually kind of low. Let me look. What gear do I even have on her? Yeah, as you can see, this is like not even glooped, just random unleveled pieces, and this is not to flex. If you might have to put your better gear on her depending on your bonuses, but of course I have maxed Great Hall and almost maxed Live Arena Great Hall as well, so I get plenty of perks from that. And I guess the only champion I didn't show yet is the basic Husk. He's not even in like lethal or savage. Maybe I could do it, but like I mentioned, I'm not really using him anymore, so he doesn't deserve good gear. This is just if I need to use him in Cursed City. And yeah, having Maulie with both accuracy and resistance might be hard to pull off without very good gear if you don't have your Great Hall and Live Arena Great Hall at high level or max like me. But if you have Quintus, or when you get Quintus, probably you are pretty close to it, so this is doable. And even if you are not this far, if you put some of your better gear, or if you decide to swap gear every time you do Hydra, then you could do this strategy. And yeah, that's it. It wasn't something super complicated or very big brained, but I kind of wanted to highlight Maulie and wanted to remind people that she's actually very viable and even top tier Hydra champion. Maybe that's a bit too far, because if you're really top tier, you're gonna run the double Yumeko even on Nightmare Hydra. But let's say on normal average accounts or even more in-game accounts, Maulie is still definitely very viable in Hydra, and maybe actually more viable than ever because of all of the bonuses that you can get from basically the two different Great Halls that we have. I'll probably do actually another Hydra video next week as well, because Plarium is making some kind of competition about the new Monster Hunter champions and Hydra. I'll have to think about it, but the Hydra video I made last week and this video, they are my actual normal Hydra teams, and I'll have to try an experiment. Maybe I can come up with something even better for actual competition. But these were kind of my comfort teams that I'm using my leftover gear and I'm doing full auto. I'm definitely not gonna manual these. But anyway, I'll play the full Nightmare Hydra key at the end, the Acresia version. But anyway, I'll play the full Hydra key, the Acresia version, after this. And I'm not gonna play the other version with Husk, but you just have to take my word that that key was full auto and I definitely didn't manual it. But anyway, that's it. I'll put some suspensive music and let's watch the full Hydra fight.